I like, click, subscribe, do all that. You already know what time it is. It's Netflix time. This movie's called All the Bright Places. Two teens facing personal struggles form a powerful bond as they embark on a Catholic journey chronicling the wonders of Indiana. So it's one of those teen dramas that came out last year. It's about an hour, 48 minutes long. Spoiler alert, let's get it. So we got this guy by the name of Fitch. He's out taking a nice little jog. He sees this girl by the name of Violet stand at the edge of the bridge, looking like she's about to just jump off. He tries talking to her to get her down, but when that doesn't work, he gets up there with her. Somehow he convinced her to come back down. So afterwards she goes to school. She talks to this girl named Amanda and reminds her about a party. But she's like not even paying her any attention, especially after Finch shows up. Now Finch has got this guidance counselor that he goes to every day. I'm not sure what exactly they meet up for. It could be for his anxiety, his OCD, any type of PTSD. They don't really get real specific in that department. Anytime the guidance counselor asks his questions, he gets real dismissive and starts deflecting. Tends to crack jokes with him, pretty much avoiding whatever issues he's having. Violet's eating lunch. She's approached by this boy, Josh. I guess that's her former boyfriend or something. And this is Fitch's best friend, Danny. Apparently he's been around him all his life. They catch him staring at Violet, and we find out why Violet was standing on that bridge. So her sister Eleanor had died a couple months ago. It was in a horrific car crash, and the spot that she was standing at on the bridge is exactly where the car crashed at. So then we find out Finch has a sister named T. Their mom's always at work, so it's pretty much just them on their own. Let's just say their relationship is real close. And here we have Violet's mom and Violet's dad. Hey, it's Luke Wilson. Man, I ain't seen Luke Wilson in a minute. Probably since Idiocracy. So we go back to Finch, and in his room he's got a bunch of sticky notes pasted to the wall. Now why does he have all these notes on the wall? He writes stuff down and helps him remember the past, because every now and then he blacks out. But you wouldn't have known that at first considering what he writes on his papers. Then he looks up a Facebook page with Eleanor and Violet on it. Apparently she still keeps it posted. So he goes out jogging at night again, and this is how he found out where the accident took place. Next day, back in class, Finch is there waiting on Violet to get to class. She comes in dropping her books, everybody starts laughing at her. So I guess to make her feel comfortable, he flips his desk over. So the teacher asks him to do some type of experiment, and the people can choose their own partners. So Finch is going to try to get Violet to be his partner. When he gets home, he writes up another sticky note because she smiled at me. So a lot of the notes he's putting up now are memories of Violet. But Violet goes to her mom and says she only want to do the project, so her mom asks her if she wants to do an alternate project. She doesn't really go out with her friends no more like that, so her mom convinces her to go out and have fun with her friends. So Violet ends up going to the party. Meanwhile, Finch is in the bathtub holding his breath underwater for a long period of time before putting his head up. Then we get back to the party where Josh is trying to talk to Violet again. You can tell he's trying to get back with her, but then he says something that pertains to her sister. Yeah, real smooth, genius. And she's like, you know what, I'm just gonna go. When she leaves, she ends up getting a video text message. He sends a video singing a song while playing the guitar, but the song reminds her about the bridge. But since he put it on his Instagram story, she calls him and tells him to take it down, which he does. They end up meeting up and she starts talking about why she came from California all the way to Indiana. It's a somewhat morbid conversation, but he eventually gets her to smile. She's starting to think more and more if she should work on this project with him. Next day, he's driving by the neighborhood. He sees her riding a bike. He tells her he wants to give her a ride, but obviously she's not getting in the car. And because of what happened to her sister, she has a phobia about getting in cars. So to get to a spot that he wants to go to, he gets his bike. And they ride over to his spot. He gets her to stand on a rock called Indiana's High Point. And the purpose of this for him was to get her to smile. Then they bury little trinkets that he had in his pocket. Then they have a good old-fashioned staring contest. I don't know why it sounded like that, just cuz. Anyway, once they got back home, they started reading quotes back and forth to each other from one of Finch's favorite books, Virginia Woolf. Then all of a sudden, while they're going back and forth with the messages, Finch appears outside of her window. He wants to take her to this spot. It's got this wall that says, "Before I die, I want to do blank." Finch puts to stay awake. Violet puts to be brave. I know there should be some type of metaphor in there somewhere. Then for a little bit, they start talking about Violet's sister. Next day, she gets back home, helps her dad fix pancakes. She goes to school the next day, Amanda finds out that she's been hanging around Fitch. And she's like, you shouldn't be hanging around this guy. He's dangerous. He's a madman. She was like, one time he got upset and threw a desk at a teacher and almost killed him. She's concerned, but that's not going to stop her from seeing Finch. Even more so, she's curious about what happened in that situation. Then he gives her a rock that says, your turn, in her locker. They get to talking more. You can tell she's more concerned about him than anything else. Then all of a sudden, Josh gets in Fitch's face. And Josh reminds him he's supposed to be some type of freak. Then we see him back with his guidance counselor. Pretty much gives him the same spiel, but he does get a little bit further. He talks about his feelings, but only to a certain extent. Then he goes jogging again. Next morning, Violet wakes up. Dad's looking outside. He says, somebody's sleeping on their lawn. Turns out it's this nigga Finch just sleeping on the lawn. I'm like, really? It's like, Finch, get the fuck up. So after he gets up, he convinces her to take a ride with him. He tells her he'll only go like 30 miles an hour. He'll go as slow as he can. He promise everything will be all good and safe gravy. And only because she's doing the project and also she's kind of feeling him, she gets inside the car. They chilling, listening to music. While on the road, Violet really breaks down the details of what happened with the car when she was in there with her sister. Then they finally get to one of their destinations, to a guy that he knows that built a miniature roller coaster. They both tried out and had fun. That was the first time we actually seen her laugh in the whole movie. As they're marking down stuff, they're going to be driving to another spot. But in between all that, tension gets heavy, and she ends up kissing him. Then they get to this one spot where they're tying shoes together to throw on a tree, just enjoying themselves, having fun. But when they get back to school, something's off about Fitch. And then the next day, he doesn't even show up. Violet's been trying to call for a couple days. She gets no answer. She's worried sick about him. Then we see this one image where he's out by a lake. So Violet asks Fitch's friends like, yo, what's good? And they say sometimes he just does this. He just goes off the grid for about 2 or 3 days, sometimes a week. And at this point, it's been a week. She's been trying to call him, and all of a sudden, she comes downstairs, and he's sitting on her couch talking to her parents. So she's like, yeah, where the fuck have you been? And he went and got a bunch of roses and stuff for her for the places that he's been. She can't help but to forgive him, but he wants to take her to the secret spot that he's always clowning about. So this is his little secret spot. He starts talking about trying to reach the bottom to see the other side of the water, like a whole nother world or something. But really, it's not that. It's just a lot of morbid talk. Then he convinces her to get in the water and go swimming, even though they know it's freezing in there. Then she notices this long scar that's on his stomach. He doesn't really remember exactly where it came from, but he knows it came from his dad. His dad used to beat the shit out of him and his sister. But that's one of the big reasons why he blacks out and why he uses all those sticky notes. So then he goes diving into the water again, but then Violet thought about what he was saying and was like, oh shit, she started getting scared. Because he hasn't come up for air in a while, so she started screaming out his name. Then he finally pops up and she's like, dude, I thought you drowned. And after he finally tells her something real about himself, she just brings him close. You know, he needs love. Then he takes about these old trains that are not operational anymore. One of the rooms he has decked out actually looks kind of decent. And then they do the dude for real. He ends up giving her the business. To the point where they overslept and they was in there the next morning. He gets the daughter back to her, apologizes for everything. He says it's my fault, it's not her fault. He gets back to the house and you could tell if he feels like he's about to flip out. Because I really think he has anxiety issues. Then he starts ripping all the post-it notes off the wall. Then paints over the wall. He goes out jogging again. He sits in his closet and tries to write more sticky notes. And here comes Josh just picking with her. He's kind of like an annoying gnat. He keeps trying to warn her about Finch, but she's not trying to hear none of that shit. So Josh calls Finch a freak one more time, and then Finch chokes his ass out until Violet tells him to stop. Then he just walks off. He parks his car in the garage and has a complete and mental breakdown. As Violet's talking to Danny, she's like, man, how do you put up with this all the time? Because he loves him and he needs help. Afterwards, Violet goes looking for Fitch, but ends up finding his sister T. It turns out Fitch went to some type of anonymous meeting. It just so happens that he sees Amanda attending one of these meetings too. So apparently a while ago, she tried to kill herself twice. But yet she calling other people dangerous, right? Okay. He's not really sure what he's there for, but he just wanted to explain the situation that happened at school. He doesn't really know where to go from there because he's looking for help, but he does explain about his blackouts. Meanwhile, Violet's talking to T. T says she's about to go to work. She's like, Violet, you can stay as long as you want. You know what I mean? Waiting for him to come back or whatever. And of course, Violet's going to stay there as long as she can. Meanwhile, Amanda asks Fitch why she keeps doing stuff like this. And his response is he really doesn't know. He feels like he keeps messing things up, and you just hope he's not heading down a downward spiral. While T's at work, Finch pays her a visit, lets her know everything's all good. He wanted to know what their dad was like, but all she kept saying was he beat the shit out of us, end of the story. And because she wouldn't tell me anything else about Dad, he just basically deflected his feelings. And just basically said, you know what, I'm good, everything's all good and gravy. But we know damn well he's lying, he's not good. Meanwhile, Violet's sitting in his room the whole time, and Finch finally comes back home. They have this huge argument, and he's basically accepting the fact that he's a freak or a monster. Like, if we knew his dad, there would be one of those instances we could tell some of his dad is coming out of him. He basically pushes her away. And this is one of those instances where she should stay, but then she ends up deciding to leave. Next day, she rides past the bridge, but she's not going there to jump, she's going there to call Fitch. As she calls, leaving him a message, she apologizes to him and everything. She just wants to hear from him at this point. She gets back to the house, she's been looking everywhere for him. Then she has to talk with her dad. Her dad reminds her to think about all the places they used to go together. Of course, his secret place. And she's actually going to drive there. Yeah, she gets in the car with no hesitation to look for him. When she gets there, she sees his van, but he's not in it. It's just the flowers in there. She looks over by the rocks, and she sees his clothes laying there. Thinking the worst at this point, she calls out to Finch. She checks his pants and finds his phone in there, and she finds the rock and his keys in there. And yeah, it's become quite apparent he went down in the water and didn't come back up. She just sat there on his car and waited until the police came. And they had a funeral because they did find his body. And now she's blaming herself for not leaving the house, telling herself she should have never left him alone. She has a one-on-one with Amanda. She tries to give her some words of encouragement. And then she also finds out what Amanda tried to do to herself years ago. She kept every post-it note that he gave her. And this one book that he had written out, which was like a diary, but it also included certain places on there. She drove to this one spot that apparently Finch used to go to. It looked more like a safe haven for him. It's actually a spot to people that lost their lives and paid respects to people that were in automobile accidents. So even in death, he was still thinking about you. And then looks through the guest registry and finds out he really was there. Then she goes to school the next day and reads his book in front of the class. Everybody was in the room, including his guidance counselor. And she feels like the lesson was he was actually teaching her how to move on, which worked because she doesn't want to kill herself anymore. The last vision we get is her swimming in the lake. Yeah, I know it's one of those psychological films, but I wanted to call it like I see it because I wasn't really sure exactly what they had him diagnosed with. All the Bright Places on Netflix. Check it out. Like, click, subscribe, do all that. You know what time it is. Like, easy, all the easy, mister. See, big. You got a damn slogan.